Michigan's got Indiana this week, but where do they go from here? Is it, I've seen, I think some people had commented that if you go uh, went out, to the Ohio State game, that you potentially hold your own, have you still control your own destiny.
No,
Which that I guess in terms of the Big Ten, that's possible, but you don't control your own destiny,
no, you need a little help. But I
right?
will say that the college football playoff rankings that came out last night for Michigan to be at 7. And Desmond, I gave you a call. We were talking during lunch about this. At 11, they need some help. An 11-1 Michigan team that would have beat Penn State and Ohio State. And that's just I mean that's going to be a really high selling point for the committee, because and let's be honest, you want Michigan viewership, and that does play. It shouldn't, and it probably is a low percentage of the weight on a weight scale of how they choose their teams. But when they're having their final discussion, it will be part of that discussion. Michigan's viewership impact, and because it's about winning, but it's about dollars, too. So
And
no,
we
they
had
can
a
control their own destiny,
conference.
but they can make it really, really a really strong argument.
So the scenario that we talked about at lunch that you wanted me to bring up
Right.
was if Michigan beats Ohio State. So Michigan wins out. They beat Ohio State. Michigan State wins the Big Ten title, but they lose to Ohio State. Would Michigan at that point get into the college football playoff? So
I
I'll
said
repeat it
yes.
again because that was a lot. So essentially, Michigan is going to win out. So they would beat Penn State, they'd beat Ohio State, Indiana, and Maryland. At that point, so just from that, Ohio State would have 2 losses. They would have lost to Oregon and Michigan.
Right.
Michigan State would win the Big Ten title but lose to Ohio State. So Michigan State would have
No,
one
no, 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 no.
conference.
Yes, you're right. I'm sorry. You're right. That's correct.
So Michigan State would have one conference loss, and that would be to Ohio State. And that would be Michigan State's only loss. They would go to the Big Ten title game and they win the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be possible, and Mark, we can pose that question to you, if Michigan and Michigan State could potentially both get into the playoff?
All right. If you want me to go first, just so I can keep that in my brain,
You go
the
first.
least
Yes.
amount of time. All right. So Michigan State's the Big Ten champ,
Yes.
They have one loss, and that's to Ohio State
12
in
and
this
1.
scenario.
Ohio State's lost 2 games. Forget them. Michigan's 11 and 1.
Correct. They would beat
Okay.
Ohio State. Yep, win out. Could potentially get 2 teams in.
Well, yeah, I can draw up all sorts of scenarios. So that's what I've been doing for the last
Yeah, sure on that. Yeah.
day or so. People call with all sorts of scenarios. They want to try to slide Purdue in the playoff. But let's go so there a lot's going to have to happen. So let's go reasonable situation that could possibly get them there would be, the ACC.
Is
Wake
out.
Forest
Yeah.
has to go on this run that they're not going to go on. Okay.
And I think you probably need Georgia to beat Alabama to knock Alabama out of the. I think 2 losses will put them out.
Yeah, you just need Georgia to, again, aside from Missouri beating Georgia and all these kind of crazy things that won't happen. Realistically, yeah, Georgia, just one SEC team. It's Georgia. They're in. They knock out Alabama. Maybe Alabama loses some other game. Because I don't know if the committee's not setting up Alabama to lose to Georgia in the SEC championship game and still stay in the top 4.
Oh my
with the number
God.
2 ranking.
No, they would not get away with that. No way.
I sure hope not.
Team?
I honestly, I hope not.
No.
Like, you don't deserve to be in with 2
2 losses. No.
Think
Can't
about
do it.
this. Think about this. Alabama's number 2 right now. They will have beaten LSU. That's not a great feat, but still a pretty good, talented LSU team. Beat Auburn, who's right now at number 12, the last game of the season. So they're only going to solidify their number 2. It's only going to become stronger. And then they play the consensus number 1. Nobody has any question, no doubt, number 1 team in the country in the SEC championship game. And they lose 31-30 on a last-second field goal. You don't think they might only drop a spot or 2?
Man, Yeah, that's a good. Oh
Mark,
man.
I could see that if if there was more in signature wins throughout the course of the season for Alabama.
Yeah.
Let's say Alabama.
Well, they had like the year that like Ole Miss and Mississippi State were both at one point in the top 4.
Yeah,
Like,
like I think that
back
they'll
when
need
Dak
more
was there,
signature
and
wins. Like I understand like the backloaded and some of those really good wins towards the end of that schedule, but I think to have 2 losses. I feel like this goes across the board for any team. I think for any two loss for any team with 2 losses to get into the college football playoff, you would have had to have a schedule in which you played 5 or 6 top 15 ranked teams or something like that. Like something crazy where you're like the SEC, mid 2000s, where you had like it seemed like 5 or 6 teams that were like, or 6 teams that were in the top 25, right? And Bama beat 5 of them, right, or 6 of them. It's like, okay, yeah, that's you went through a true gauntlet. I understand what you're saying. The committee's giving Bama some wiggle room,
yeah.
but I just don't see it. I don't
Well,
see it.
right now, Auburn's in the top 15. Ole Miss is in the top 15. Texas A&M's in the top 15. Mississippi State's number 17.
Dang. I
Georgia
guess I
will
didn't
be
know.
number 1 in the country. I don't know. I'm just saying. I think Alabama's the second best team in the country. Now,
Well, that's
I
yeah,
always
sure.
I always say what I think and what the reality on the field are 2 different things. Like,
Right.
I don't think they should be ranked number 2 just because I think that they're the second best team. I don't think they have the second best resume. I've got them
Right.
at 4. I think they should be 4 or 5 range, but they put them at 2 already.
Yeah, they definitely would like. They're begging Bama, just please take care of your business, and we'll keep you. We want you here.
And
We
I
want
think
you here.
Georgia's in no matter what. Like, I don't think there's a scenario. I mean, outside of losing 2 games, but Georgia's in. They're
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
Outside. I mean, even if Alabama beats them by 14 points in the SEC championship, they're still getting in. They'll be number 4. I think they're getting in no matter what. Cincinnati is we're getting a little off topic, but
No,
Cincinnati's
we're
the
talking about
one that's
yeah.
just it's tough because they've done everything that you needed to do as a
No, they haven't.
G5 school to get. Well, hold on, they have, because number 1, they were good. They were pretty good 2 years ago. Last year they had a really good season, and then this year they had the schedule that you need. So you need to be coming off a good season, and then you also need to have some Power 5 ranked schools on your schedule that next year, essentially the culmination, which they have, with Notre Dame. They beat Notre Dame on the road.
Yeah.
And then they also beat Indiana, who Michigan's going to play, this week. But that it's to be 6, that's tough. You need a lot of help. You need a lot of help.
Especially,
you need a lot of help, especially since, and that was the one team that I was waiting for to see what they would do with Cincinnati, because everybody else outside of maybe Wake Forest, they control their own destiny. You win, you're in, and you just go ahead, run the table, win the conference, you're in. Except Cincinnati, by saying Cincinnati right now is 6, and their resume compared to everybody else's is only going to get worse and worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
They're in trouble. They are in trouble.
Yeah, they are.
But no one should be crying. Look, here's the thing. Like, unfortunately, when you play in the American League Conference, whatever it's called, like, unless your non-conference schedule is you have like at least 2 or 3, top 10 wins, top 15 wins. I mean, it's just tough. It's tough. It's tough to fight that uphill battle, because, and I told this to Desmond, during when we were talking today, it's like the committee, and you challenged me on it. I said they should be choosing the
most entertaining, I think, is what you said. The most entertaining matchup.
But it has something to do with it. Like, you don't want to pick teams. You want to reward winning, but you also don't want to pick teams that, to be honest, like are just a waste of time to play the games, right? And that will be part of the discussion. If it comes down to 11-1 Michigan team that just beat Ohio State, and their only loss in my scenario is to the Big Ten title, champs who have one loss who are also in the playoff, you know, and now you're talking about an 11-1 Michigan team that beat both Penn State and Ohio State, compared to a Cincinnati team where their best win is over Iowa. They did beat
Notre
Iowa.
Dame.
I'm sorry, not Iowa. Notre Dame. Excuse me. Sorry about that. You're probably going to take the 11-1 Michigan team, and which you should. You should.
No,
you know,
you shouldn't, because for me, you should.
well, I think you should. I want to be in, so whatever.
Well, of course. I don't think you should, because Cincinnati's unbeaten. And my thing is, if Cincinnati's not going to get in this year, then they need to have the G5 have their own playoff, because you're never going to let a team in. You're never going to.
They should.
A G5 team. I'm sorry. You're never going to let a G5 team. Like, this is the team to make it. Like, if it's anyone, it would be this G5 team. And it's just crazy that the AP's got them at 2, and then the college football playoff ranking, they come in at 6. You know, it's just
for
like,
them to be at 2 is just pathetic. Why
Who
are
is
they 2? They're
Cincinnati is
struggling to
number
play.
2 at
They're
AP,
struggling by Tulane and Navy in
Yeah.
Indiana. That Indiana game, forget that 38-24 score. That was a struggle down to the last 5 minutes.
It was. Yeah, they had a score late. Yeah, it's interesting. I think this will be one of the most exciting finishes for college football, one that we haven't had in a while. You know, so we'll see what happens. I mean, Oklahoma, I think they were number 8, something like that. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how
Oklahoma's undefeated too. I mean, you and it's hard. And see, I'll take Oklahoma over. I'll take an undefeated Oklahoma team over an undefeated Cincinnati team. You know, and part of it is due to, to be honest, is due to the cachet that Lincoln Riley has, and the fact that this is a program that's been in the college football playoff multiple times. You know, so it's like, yeah, I mean, to bring it back to Michigan, it's one of those situations where, like, no, Michigan cannot control their own destiny in terms of if they win out, it's a guarantee that they're going to get in, but they can make it really, really convincing.